Okay, we'll start with this. Yesterday, during a broadcast of Joshua versus Robert Hellenius, several of Matchroom's shows were officially announced. One among them set to take place south of the border, Matchroom, Mexico, the Fierro versus...
Can you say that guy's name?
Zamaripa.
The undercut of Fierro versus Zamaripa, a pleasant surprise, and what could be a dangerous fight for an up-and-comer we've talked about here on the channel several times. Former WBA featherweight champion of Mexico, Cruz, will be taking on Melissa Oddessa-Parker.
What's going to prove to be an entertaining all-action shootout for the fans. That'll prove to be a dangerous fight for Melissa Parker, who usually campaigns all the way down there at bantamweight. She's set to move up 3 weight classes for this fight.
Melissa Parker, who was in action 2 weeks ago in Texas opposite the ring Sharita Metcalf.
Their rescheduled match.
To my surprise, Melissa Oddessa lost. She lost the decision in Texas, and this is what she had to say about it. Those who were there and saw know the truth. We know what we were up against going to Dallas if it went to a decision, and sure enough, they really screwed me over, but this is what I signed up for. As soon as the fight was over, Metcalf hugged me and said, "I'm cold," congratulating me. She didn't even believe she won before the scores were read.
Sounds like Melissa feels that she was robbed. It sounds like she feels a woman hard done by the judges in Texas.
Saying the decision is going to be protested, so hopefully they do the right thing. Staying positive, but tonight was bullshit.
Ahead of what is supposed to be the Cruz fight, she is coming off the first professional loss of her career, and she's not happy about it. She feels that she was robbed. I myself felt so inclined to review the fight to see what she was talking about.
Gonna be honest with you here. The right woman didn't win the fight. The same thing that lost Robson Conceição, the Valdez fight, the same thing that lost Danielito Zorrilla, the Prograis fight, and the same thing that lost Guillermo Rigondeaux, the Casimero fight, should have been the same thing that cost Sharita Metcalf this fight, spending far too much time
on the move, too much time on the run, not enough offense.
Pushed around the ring like a log down a stream. Melissa Oddessa-Parker was definitely the aggressor, and Sharita Metcalf was definitely the defender. Back against the ropes, moving lateral, using the ring, but not mounting much in terms of offense. It was Melissa Oddessa-Parker who seemed the ring general to me, and the busier puncher of the two, the stronger puncher, based on how Sharita treated the situation, that if you felt that you could have traded with her, you would have.
Round after round, this was the aesthetic of the match.
Spare me the nonsense about hit and not get hit.
That tired old trope.
What a lot of economic boxers like to say when they spend the majority of a round or the majority of a fight trying to survive, trying to stay out of trouble. Yes, it's hit and not get hit.
It's not get hit and not get hit. It's hit and not get hit. Most of the hitting.
And it was Melissa Oddessa-Parker doing most of the hitting, stepping into her jab. And I reiterate, guiding Sharita Metcalf around the ring like a log down a stream. I very much agree with her that she was robbed, she was jobbed. And
the reactions to the fight suggest the same.
Spectators in what is this spectator sport that took in this fight, they feel that Melissa should have won as well. Now, ahead of the Cruz fight.
She's coming off the first professional loss of her career, and I don't know if the local commission will decide to overturn this decision, but they should, because the right woman didn't win the fight.
It's just me being honest. It's not enough to get out of the way of punches. You have to try to land some of your own. Otherwise, you're just fighting half of a fight. You're just trying to survive.
That's it.
Though if the movement of Sharita Metcalf was able to take something off of Melissa Oddessa-Parker's work rate, so much so that the judges felt so inclined to give Sharita the decision, she's about to face the exact opposite in Cruz, where Sharita might move lateral, away from the action, staying outside of the pocket. Cruz does everything she can to stay in it, to stay mid-range to inside, to let go of big hooks, big uppercuts.
For those not aware, Cruz is the aunt of Isaac Cruz, the same Isaac Cruz that shared the ring with Gervonta Davis over a year ago, and their methodology is exactly the same. Where he's a pressure fighter, so is she.
What is this battle of the Southpaws? Cruz being a Southpaw, Melissa Oddessa as well.
Erica's no joke. She's one of the most durable, tough customers anywhere at or around these weights. Went the distance with the hard-punching Amanda Serrano.
Chilangos, those fighters from Mexico City that hail from high altitude. They've got lungs.
Melissa Oddessa has her work cut out for her.
Tack on that this is approximately 3 divisions north of where she normally campaigns. She normally campaigns down there at bantamweight. this fight is being billed as a super featherweight contest. I think this is going to be the heaviest that Melissa has ever fought in her professional boxing career, and she's got a live animal in front of her. They're both coming off of losses looking to rebound. Melissa off the loss to Sharita, and Erica off the loss to Amanda.
Set to go down next month on the 15th. We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
Men's welterweight news on the heels of the biggest win of his career. Undisputed welterweight champion Terence Crawford said, "I used to have nothing, now I'm on top of Mount Rushmore." He's been doing the rounds on several big media platforms, media outlets, getting himself seen, getting himself known.
Saw him do a morning show. I saw him on The Breakfast Club.
Let the record show that a scrappy little kid that nobody believed in from Omaha, Nebraska, made it. On Saturday morning in downtown Omaha, the city held a victory parade for its native son, Terence Crawford, on the occasion of his career-defining 9th-round knockout over Errol Spence Jr., who 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas
Got his ass kicked.
Terence Crawford became a two-time undisputed champion in the four-belt era, a thing unheard of in men's boxing. Terence would be the first, wearing a fishing vest and a bucket hat before a throng of supporters. The often reserved and unflappable Bud offered a heartfelt speech that underscored the merits of self-belief and discipline. When Jesus said, "I used to have nothing," I felt that in my heart and soul, Crawford reflected. I remember being 12 years old, in the streets, running to my grandma's house, trying to get it. I always thought to myself, man, I'ma make it. Ain't nothing gonna stop me from making it. Yeah, I was bad, I was in the streets with all the knuckleheads, but I still kept my mind on my ultimate goal, and that was to become a world champion. I always felt as if I was a leader, and I was put in a place that I'm now,
The place that I am now to lead.
all my friends, all my peers, all my family members, all of them drunk, all of them smoke, all of them like to party. I was the only one out of everybody that never drunk, that never smoked. I was high off of life."
There had to be something like 10,000 people that turned out for that parade. It was a huge turnout in downtown Omaha, Nebraska.
Doing the city proud, the little kid from Omaha, damn. Crawford added, the little kid from Omaha, overachiever. I always say I'm an overachiever because my dream was just to win one world title. Now I'm on top of Mount Rushmore. If y'all know me, if y'all know the real Terence Crawford, he continued, none of y'all thought I was gonna grow up to be the guy that's standing in front of you. Y'all said, boy, you was a bad little, now you speak so nice. You're giving back to your community. You represent us well.
He's done just that. He's put his city on the map.
And the ability that he has, you wonder, why did Top Rank struggle so long to sell this fighter? And it's mostly because they couldn't get him the fights that he needed. Those fights were contingent upon the cooperation of the PBC, and as we all know, they didn't want to cooperate.
Can't put it all on Bob.
And half of you thought I was gonna be dead or in jail, but you know, I'm glad I turned my life around for the best. Like I say, it ain't how you start the race, it's always how you finish.
The feeling that, given Terence Crawford's abilities, he should be a household name.
And if he isn't, that it's somehow Bob Arum's fault. When Bob Arum tried to get him the fights with the top welterweights at that time, Danny Garcia, who rejected an offer from Top Rank to face Terence Crawford, Keith Thurman, who said outright he wasn't interested in fighting him, and of course the much-delayed Errol Spence Jr. fight that took place 2 weeks ago.
That wasn't Bob Arum's fault.
It was Al Heyman's fault, and his fighters that didn't want nothing to do with this guy.
That's it.
Terence Crawford himself says, I don't think Spence should retire. He should take a little time off, get his mind right.
It's not Bob Arum's fault that this fight took forever to make. In Errol's own words, he wanted to clean up his side of the street first, and there were a few excursions, a few extenuating circumstances.
Well, I don't think he should retire, Crawford told The Breakfast Club co-host DJ Envy and Charlamagne Tha God during a recent appearance in New York's Power 105. I think he should take a little time off, get his mind right, and, get back in the gym and get back focused because, I never took a loss in the professional rankings, but I know how that could affect you mentally, being at this high level and losing the way Spence lost, you start questioning yourself. You start to ask yourself certain questions. Do I still got it? Am I getting old? Am I slipping? You start asking yourself all different types of questions that you've got to answer. So I should just tell him, you're a great fighter. Take a little time off and come back and, do it again, but don't rush it. I sent him a message, Crawford said. I sent him a message to check up on him.
Ahead of the fight, it was said that the loser of the match would have approximately 30 days to activate that rematch clause, and that the rematch would have to take place at some point this year.
I don't know if Errol's going to activate that rematch clause, if that news will break by the time that this video is uploaded, but you know how I feel about it. If he pursues an immediate rematch with Terence Crawford at 147, at 154, the weight don't matter. The outcome's going to be the same. So if he wants to extend his boxing career, extend his own shelf life, he should forego that rematch.
Don't do it.
Like I told everybody, I don't hate Errol Spence. Like, I'm a fan of Errol Spence. Like, you know, it was just business at the end of the day.
That's it.
Crawford added that he would have granted Spence an immediate rematch even if their contractual clauses left that decision up to the winner, rather than the loser of their Showtime pay-per-view. Of course, Crawford said, you know, because I felt like he was a big factor in getting this fight made. Like I said, without him, you know, well, both of us coming together, you know, if he was to leave everything to our handlers and promoters and advisors, managers, this fight would have never happened.
I'm telling you throughout that this is not what Tim Smith and Al Heyman and Stefan Espinoza wanted. This was not the original plan.
I felt like it was me and Errol Spence, like, all right, you want this. All right, cool. You want that. All right. All right, cool. I'm cool with this. You're cool with that, you know? And us two putting our pride to the side and just coming together and making this event happen. Errol went against the grain so that he could at least prove to be a man of his word, standing on all 10 toes.
Even if it costed him his unbeaten record.
Didn't want to put this off anymore. He wanted to be a man of his word, and for that, I think he deserves a lot of credit because he had a choice. He had the alternative of moving up in weight and fighting Keith Thurman instead of going through with this fight. And the fight played out exactly as I thought it would.
Though on the heels of it, now what people are asking themselves is, how did Bob Arum struggle to promote this guy? Struggle to promote this fighter?
He's clearly the real thing. He's clearly the genuine article. What happened there? And I told you what happened. It's not all on Bob Arum. He couldn't force Danny Garcia or Keith Thurman or Errol Spence Jr. to take the fight with Terence Crawford. It's not like Bob didn't want to make it.
Most will point to Bob Arum's comments about losing a lot of money for staging Terence Crawford's fights. That Terence Crawford's contract minimum in excess of $3 million a fight, and whatever he had to pay Crawford's opponents, Kell Brook, Amir Khan.
So multi-million-dollar guarantees for those fighters. And it costed Bob Arum a lot of money. Most people are going to point to those comments.
They're going to try to blame Bob, but he's not the one at fault here. It's Al Heyman.
Bob and Top Rank did what they could to continually get Terence Crawford the best fights they could get him. I mean, look at what they paid Sean Porter. Sean Porter was guaranteed more money for the Crawford fight than what he got as a champion to unify with Errol.
Bob did what he could, but he could only do so much.
If anybody's at fault here, it's Al Heyman and the people at the PBC. And don't get it in your head that this fight is what they wanted for Errol Spence Jr., that this is the route they wanted to go. They went as far as offering the head of Errol Spence to Canelo Alvarez.
So what does that tell you?
Charted a course for him to junior middleweight to take on Keith Thurman instead of Terence Crawford, and we talked about those rumors when they were still circulating right here on the channel. It was not Showtime's intention to make this fight, not originally, and it wasn't Al Heyman's either. It's Errol Spence Jr. that bit down and decided to bite the bullet. Eddie Hearn very recently slammed the promotion of Terence Crawford thus far, saying, Terence Crawford is an unbelievable fighter. It actually pisses me off that Crawford isn't a superstar. I see him get up on stage to rap to Mr. Carter, and I thought, you're a fucking real fucking cool son of a gun. Hearn believes that Crawford hasn't been promoted well enough until now. And that it shouldn't have taken an Errol Spence Jr. win for him to get the attention that he deserves. You may have heard me say in previous months and previous years here on this channel that if Terence Crawford were from the United Kingdom with his resume so far, his resume before the Spence fight, that would have been enough.
A two-time lineal, two-time Ring Magazine, 3-division champion, former undisputed. That would have been enough to make him a draw over there. That Terence would have been more appreciated in the UK than what he's been in the US.
Hearn believes that Crawford hasn't been promoted well until now and that it shouldn't have taken an Errol Spence win for him to get the attention he deserves. I watched the documentary about how his mom used to give people $10 to fight him and try and beat him up. How am I only seeing this now? This guy is a two-time, 2-division undisputed champion.
Let me tell you something. If Terence Crawford is not already a superstar, it's not because Top Rank didn't try, it's because at some point it takes two to tango. And the guys on the other side of the street, you know, the PBC had most of the prominent welterweights, the familiar faces, but those guys didn't want to play ball.
When he moved up to fight Jeff Hearn for the WBO title after Jeff Hearn's big win over Manny Pacquiao, that was a fight that drew good viewership for the platform. The Jose Benavidez fight drew even better viewership. That was quite literally the most watched fight that year in any combat sport, not just boxing, mixed martial arts as well.
It was literally the most watched fight in any combat sport that year, but things took a turn for the worst after that because
they were freezing him out. Up until that point, he was on the right track and Top Rank's brand of promotion was working until it came time to fight some of those PBC fighters, those PBC welterweights who were making it known that he was on the wrong side of the street.
according to them, they only wanted to fight each other. They didn't want nothing to do with him.
And this is when putting on Terence Crawford's fights became very expensive for Bob Arum, who had to honor Terence Crawford's contract minimum of $3 million plus per fight, as well as whatever he had to pay his opponents to get them in the ring with Terence Crawford.
Which wasn't cheap.
Those were very expensive fights to put on that did not yield a profit, because those were not the fights that the fans wanted to see. Those were not the fights that the fans were asking for. I'm sure that the fans would have much preferred to see Terence Crawford take on the other prominent welterweights at the weight, not Amir Khan, not Kell Brook, but Top Rank's hands were tied. They couldn't force those PBC fighters to fight Terence Crawford. So as a result of that, for the last 4 or 5 years, his profile suffered.
They're the ones that froze him out. They're the ones that made him wait.
Now, what the Haymanites have taken to saying, those loyal to Al Haymon and his PBC, is that Terence Crawford owes his highest purse and his highest payday to Al Haymon on the premise that the Spence fight finally happened, when that wasn't the original plan. That's not what Al Haymon wanted originally. What he originally wanted was for Errol Spence to move up and fight Canelo.
And if he had, we would have never got the Crawford fight. If Errol Spence would have went up to 164 and fought Canelo Alvarez, not only would he have lost, but he would have never came back down.
When that didn't work, they tried to convince Errol to move up to 154, take on Keith Thurman up there. And if he had, we would have never got the Crawford fight. He would have never came back down. It was not their plan to make the Crawford fight. It was between Crawford and Errol.
That's who made the fight. That's why it happened.
It's not that Terence Crawford is now indebted to Al Haymon for the biggest fight of his career. It's that Errol Spence Jr. stopped taking marching orders from Al Haymon and decided to take control of his career, for better or worse.
Stop delaying the fight.
Al Haymon would have had it his way. Believe you me, this fight would have never happened, and Errol would have still been an unbeaten fighter. And Terence would have been left out in the cold if Al Haymon had it his way.
He's the one at fault here.